for people who can't make it. Wonderful. Okay. So, Arian and Crystal will help me conduct this webinar and will help answer any questions you may have as well. Today we're going to go over our Healthy Growing curriculum. So this is 9 garden-based lessons. We're also going to go over 1 project-based lesson just to give you an idea of what that is. The project-based lesson we're going over is called Eating with the Seasons. And to download the lesson plans, you can go online to healthyplanetus.org, and I'll show you what that looks like right here. If you go to our website, you go to Get Involved, scroll to Healthy Growing, and then scroll down to Resources, and you can access our lessons from there. So again, feel free to write down any questions and mark which lesson they relate to. And you can write the questions in the chat box, or write them down and type them in later on during the presentation. This is an infographic that we made here at Healthy Planet, and it symbolizes how our food system isn't working. 1/3 of Americans are obese or overweight, and obesity leads to a variety of illnesses and diseases, including type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and cancers. But luckily, we can fix that. At early stages of type 2 diabetes, if you just eat healthy and exercise, you can actually reverse the symptoms. So our goal here at Healthy Planet is to inspire the next generation of conscious eaters. And our solution is to have kids grow food. Research shows that growing food in school improves health, well-being, and employability. And kids who grow vegetables eat vegetables. It's that simple. So the Healthy Growing program is a customized school garden program designed around the strengths of each school. And this, most of you already know, but we help develop both the school garden and the garden program simultaneously to really encompass the vast community around the school that is in support of this garden and program. So let's move into the lessons. Lesson number 1 is called Farm to Fork, and the objective of this lesson is to describe the processes that food goes through from farm to plate. There is, first of all, a PowerPoint called Can I Eat It? And this PowerPoint describes how to process food before consumption. So an example of this is before you eat an apple or a peach, you have to first pick it from the tree, and then you have to wash it, and then you can eat it. Another example is a carrot. You have to harvest it from the ground and then wash it and then eat it. Or a potato, which you have to harvest and then wash and then cook and then eat. So this is really teaching kids about the processes that food goes through, but more importantly about making sure your food is sanitary and making sure you wash it before consuming it. The class activity in this lesson is called the food tree, and this is where students draw a food picture and then trace its components back as far as they can. And the example they give in the lesson is of a hamburger, and you take the hamburger and you separate out all its different components. So you have the meat, the burger itself, the buns, the lettuce, tomato, mayonnaise, relish, whatever else you like to put on a burger, and you try and draw a line back to its origin. So for meat, for example, you would go back to the cow that it came from. And how does the cow survive? What does the cow need? Well, the cow needs to eat grass or hay. So you go to that, and how did that get created? Well, that goes back to the dirt. And eventually you can see the pattern of all of these things going back to the soil and the earth, and how it opens kids' minds about really where their food comes from. The group activity for this lesson is each group is assigned a type of food, and the group traces their assigned food back to its origin. So this is the food tree, but on a group scale and with different varieties of food. Lesson 2 is called The Growing Plant, and the objective of this lesson is to describe what a growing plant needs to stay healthy. And the group activity and discussion that follows is the needs of a plant. And so in this activity, the students write on little Post-it notes what a plant needs. So examples of this are sunshine, are water, nutrients, soil, love, hugs, whatever your kids can come up with. And so these examples, they stick onto the plant itself, and they get a better, more holistic idea of what plants need in order to survive. The folding plant activity that you see on the left is where groups create a whole plant by having each student draw a different section and fold over the piece of paper. So the whole plant is a mystery until it's unraveled at the end. So you have the first student draw the roots, and the second student draw the base of the plant. The third student maybe draws the leaves of the plant. The fourth student draws the fruit or the flower, etc. This lesson also goes with a PowerPoint called What's Wrong with Me? And this is where the group observes different pictures, and this is an example of something that's on the PowerPoint that's which one has had no water. So which one's had water, which one has had no water. And looking at this, it's pretty obvious, but if you were just to show the plant on the right, it might not be as clear. This PowerPoint also goes over things like lack of light or nutrients and what those plants look like in comparison to their healthier relatives. An individual activity you can do in this lesson is to imagine you're a plant and to write a letter to your less healthy cousin plant who's growing a few fields away. What does your cousin need to be healthy? And this is a great opportunity to practice different English or writing skills like letter structure, grammar, peer critiquing, etc. Lesson number 3 is all about seeds, and the objective of this lesson is to explain how and why seeds are adapted and dispersed. So for this lesson, you will need examples of seeds such as foxtails, dandelions, apple seeds, different fruit seeds, and tubers like potatoes, yams, and sweet potatoes. And these could be gathered by the class in your garden or in your neighborhood, or they could be collected beforehand to prepare. So your group discussion in this lesson is asking, where does a new plant come from, and where do seeds come from? And the PowerPoint that goes along with this is called Some Seeds Travel on Water. And this asks, how are different seeds adapted to travel? So the PowerPoint shows an example of a coconut floating in the ocean, and how the coconut is adapted to travel and spread to different areas, or how a foxtail sticks into an animal's fur and gets carried to a different place in that way. The group activity in this lesson is adapting a seed. So the students in this activity use different seeds and materials to adapt their seeds to different environments. So, you can have a seed float in water for a certain amount of time, or try and make it float in the air, or try and make it travel a long distance. And you use different sorts of fun materials like shoelaces and balloons and all sorts of stuff to bring about this point. The healthy growing session for lesson number 3 is actually planting a seed. So this is kind of the seed lesson coming full circle. And in this lesson, the students bring in some sort of container. It could be anything, and we actually really encourage kids to be creative with this. So you could do an egg carton, you could do an old shoe, you could do a pencil case. We've seen all sorts of stuff. And once they get their container where they're going to grow their seeds, they plant their seeds, usually indoors, but it could be outdoors as well, and they take care of them and water them until they germinate and sprout. And it depends on the type of seed you use, but if you plant something like lettuce, you could plant this in your garden once you're done with your experiment. So at this point, we're going to go over one of the project-based lessons. And this lesson is called Eating with the Seasons: How to Eat Sustainably and Help Create a Sustainable Food System. So just once again, our project-based lessons are individual lessons that can be used to supplement an existing curriculum or as an extra activity to do with your students in the garden. So it could be just something you throw in when you have half an hour of spare time in the garden, or something that you planned around with your other curriculum. So the goal of Eating with the Seasons is to understand the concept of harvest seasons and food availability, and to expand the consequences associated with eating out of season. This covers the distance food travels from farm to fork, or the food miles, as well as the quantity of greenhouse gas emissions created from food transportation. So for more advanced students, you can do a lot of calculations with this, and potentially calculate how many emissions are created from something they eat from home. So the individual activity with this lesson is to make a seasonal food wheel showing what's in season when. And you can also, just quick note, use this in or outside of the classroom, this seasonal lesson, asking, what's for your school lunch, and is it in season, or what's growing in the garden right now, and which season are you growing what foods. This is an example of the seasonal food wheel that you could make. And as you can see, it shows the different months as well as the different fruits and vegetables that are common for those times. Lesson 4 is called Soil and Compost. And just quickly, before we go on to Lesson 4, are there any questions that anyone has? If you do have any, feel free to type them in the chat box, and our moderators will let me know and I can answer them for you. Okay, let's move on. So lesson number 4 is called Soil and Compost. And the objective of this lesson is to teach the importance and process of decomposition. The class discussion that goes along with this is, of course, about decomposition and the benefits of composting. It goes more deeply into this, but the compost experiment is the really fun part. So the students have to actually make an experimental compost box. And this consists of, first, a large plastic container, which they poke holes into and cut off the top, and they add their greens, their browns, and their experiment items. Greens are their nitrogen-rich items, which are fruit peels, vegetable scraps, fresh grass clippings, fresh leaves from the garden. The browns are the carbon-rich items, such as twigs, or dried leaves, or sticks. And then the experiment items is really anything they want to experiment with. It could be a piece of candy that's in its wrapper, or a little toy, or a piece of nylon or string. And they put all of this into their container with a bit of water, and they seal it back up. And every week or so, they analyze it, and they water it and shake it up and make sure it's well mixed. And at the end of the experiment, hopefully they have some nice compost, and also learn something about how plastics can't decompose. So that's another part of the lesson. I won't spoil it, but it's definitely an exciting part for them to discover. Lesson number 5 is called The History of Agriculture. And the objectives of this lesson are to describe farming from the past and then how it relates to the present. So the class discussion is all about why do people farm and how did they do this back then. And as a group, you'll analyze photos and actions of ancient farmers so you can see examples of people tilling the soil in Egypt and what people do nowadays to have the same results. The garden session or an additional group activity of this lesson is the enterprise workshop. And this workshop or this lesson teaches about the process of turning an idea into a project or a business. This is an example at St. Monica's where students taught people at the farmers market about composting and also raised money to invest back into the garden. Lesson number 6 is called Food Advertisements, and the objective of this lesson is to design an advertisement that will persuade people to buy a product. And the discussion here is about the students' favorite advertisements and what makes these advertisements special. And these could be advertisements from online, from TV, the radio, posters, flyers, anything that they see and they're exposed to, even the back of cereal boxes. And the group activity for this lesson is to come up with an advertisement for a specific food item that you delegate to them. And this could be, we usually recommend doing a fruit or a vegetable because it's generally more difficult, but an apple, a banana, or broccoli. In the past, people have done all sorts of, or kids have done all sorts of funny things, like making a play out of encouraging people to eat more broccoli and doing skits and also doing posters. So there's a lot of different ways you can get kids to be really creative about this lesson. The class activity is to evaluate different advertisements. So what do advertisements use to engage their audience? What kind of colors do they have? What kind of pop culture references? What kind of patterns? What words do they use? So really having students think critically about what they're being exposed to in the different advertisements that they see on a daily basis. Lesson number 7 is called Food, Culture, and Origin. And the objective of this lesson is to link and describe how food differs between cultures. The individual activity is for kids to compare their meals from the night before with each other. So they each ask each other, what did you have for dinner? And, oh, I've never had that. Why did you have that? Maybe one kid had curry, maybe another kid had carnitas or something. So really trying to get kids be open about what they have at home and share the food that's from their family and their specific culture. A group activity in this lesson is to give groups of students pictures of meals and discuss the origins of those meals. So this is a more general and kind of more specific example of different foods from different cultures. But it's still a fun activity to see if they can guess. One of the encouraged activities that we do is to invite parents from different cultures to come in and teach how to cook specialty dishes. And this is a great opportunity to support the school community and to encourage the parents' involvement in the garden and in the classroom. And I know that a lot of parents have a difficult time engaging in the classroom, even if they really want to. So for those parents who like to speak through their food, this is a great opportunity for them to come in and do that and share that with the rest of your community. Lesson 8 is called Ethical and Fair Eating. And the objective of this lesson is to explain the benefits of fair trade and ethical food. The group activity is to trace the path of a banana from a farm to you. And this is called the banana split. So who gets what in the banana chain? And there are numerous different members of the banana chain, and you can make up more if you want to have a more advanced, if you're working with a more advanced group of kids. But this is a picture of the PowerPoint that we use, and so we ask the students to put the following into the order you think they take in the banana chain. So who comes first and who comes last. And as you can see on the next slide, this is the order. It goes from the grower, the plantation owner, the shipper, wholesaler, importer, ripener, retailer, and buyer. And this also shows the amount of money that they get dependent on what their position is in this chain, in this banana chain. And this is a really eye-opening experiment to do with students to see first what they guess the amount of money is each person gets, and then to show them the real amount. It's a very striking difference. Lesson number 9 is called Healthy and Unhealthy Eating. And the objective of this lesson is to discuss healthy versus unhealthy eating, obviously, and to create and analyze a meal based on its nutritional value. So the first thing that students do is the group activity, which is which foods go where. So you pass out different cutouts of foods, and the students have to place them in the correct place on the MyPlate diagram. And you can discuss what a balanced meal means, as well as portion control using this activity. The individual or group activity, depending on what you want to do, is students create balanced meals using different foods. So this could be using the same cutouts, and they create meals for, say, different types of people, like someone who is pregnant or someone who exercises a lot, and just to get them thinking about what kinds and amounts of food different people need. Okay, this is our Q&A section. If anyone has any questions at this point, I'm just going to take a look at the chat box. Okay, let's just do this live. Let's unmute. Oh, I see. Okay, good. All right, does anyone have any questions now that you're free to speak?
I don't, thank you.
Yeah.
It was a great presentation. It was informative.
Oh, I'm not done yet, don't worry. We're still going to go over a few gardening tips, so there might be some questions at that point. All right, well, don't be shy, but if you do have more questions, feel free to ask. I appreciate all of them because it lets me know what I'm missing and what you're interested in. Okay. So let's move on to the second part of the presentation. So healthy growing gardening tips. The first thing we're going to do is watch a couple videos. The first one is called How to Plant a Seed. And if you don't have, there isn't great resolution on this video, these videos are also online, and we can put the links to the video in the chat box for you to get at the end of the presentation. How to plant a seed. Step 1. Clean out your garden bed of old plants and debris. Make sure to level the area. Step 2. Select the seeds you want to plant. Make sure to read the back of the seed packets for planting instructions. Step 3. Make individual rows for the seeds. Make a furrow with your fingers in the soil. It's important that this is deep enough so the seeds are safe from birds and other critters, but not too deep so the seeds won't sprout. Generally, the bigger the seed, the deeper it's planted. Step 4. Evenly distribute the seeds. Empty the amount of seeds you are planning on using into one hand. Use your other hand to evenly sprinkle the seeds into the furrow. Make sure to label your garden after planting. It can be difficult to tell what's what when the plants are small, and having labels will make weeding, watering, and identifying edible plants that much easier. Step 5. Cover up your seeds. Cover up the furrows by spreading the soil from either side over the seeds. Step 6. Water appropriately. Remember to water your seeds. They need water to germinate and grow. Water your seeds a few times before they germinate or grow leaves, and water them frequently after germination. This is the time when roots are smallest and can dry out easily. Congratulations! You've planted your first seeds. Good luck! Okay. Thank you for viewing that. So I'm sorry if anyone had any problems with the video. Excuse me, it might have been a bit glitchy, but we will have the videos. They are currently up on YouTube, and as I mentioned before, the links to the videos will be put in the chat box. So this next one's pretty short, so just bear with me. How to check soil moisture. Step 1. Check the soil using your fingers. Dig your fingers into the soil as deep as they can go. Pull up the deepest soil and feel it between your fingers. Step 2. Examine the soil. This is an example of soil that lacks moisture. It's very dry to the touch and doesn't stick together. Step 3. Water the plants. This is an example of a plant that wasn't watered enough. If you dig under the surface layer of moisture, you'll find the soil is still dry. Water plants with less water for a longer period of time. This creates better permeation. Make sure your students water at the base of the plants, as watering the leaves could cause damage. Make sure to water thoroughly and check the moisture of the soil after watering. This is an example of soil that has the perfect amount of moisture. This soil sticks together and is moist but not wet. Good job, you're done. Yay! So again, for those of you who had trouble watching that video, I'm pretty sure the audio came out fine, but the video might have been a bit blurry. The links to it are in the chat box, and you can go to our YouTube page and watch them there, hopefully not glitchy. So those were just a few little videos we created for your benefit. And so let's talk a bit about growing seasonally. So the fall-winter garden, I've separated this into the fall-winter garden and the spring-summer garden, just because that's kind of how the school year works, and obviously also how the garden works. So you generally want to begin your fall-winter garden after the summer, and the first thing you want to start doing is work on planting seeds in your garden and starting seeds indoors with your kids. So this should be your number one priority when you come back from summer, if you haven't had a summer garden, is to just start planting, getting as much stuff growing and watered in as you can as soon as possible. So the fall is the time to grow cold crops like kale, chard, cabbage, broccoli, lettuce, potatoes, parsley, and beets. There are also a few other things you can definitely try and grow, but those are some we recommend starting with. These crops will do well in cooler weather, and if they are big enough, they can withstand frost as well, which a lot of places get in the winter. Speaking of which, it's important to know when your average first frost date is. And you can find this out either in your school garden guide or online as well. There are lots of resources. So a spring summer garden, it should begin around February or early March, depending on your location. And at this time, you should decide whether you want to continue to plant into the spring for a summer garden, or if you would prefer to harvest your garden before school's out. And if you have a very dedicated green team and a supportive community and a great group of parents, a summer garden shouldn't be a problem. But remember to plan for warmer weather and always be aware of your water use. If you teach your students how to water properly, you can conserve gallons of water and still have a flourishing garden. Two options for school gardens that won't have participants tending in the summer are harvest days or a cover crop. And a harvest day is basically a day where everyone gets together, the whole school garden community comes together near the end of the school year and harvests everything they can and has a big potluck and makes a bunch of food from what you harvested in the garden. And you can mix this up and harvest part of what's in your garden and compost the rest if you don't want to have a summer garden. You can also put different fun activities and games with it to make it really fun for the students. And cover cropping is planting a cover, basically, so just spreading seeds over all of your garden beds with a summer tolerant or a dry tolerant crop like barley or clover or some different types of legumes that enrich the soil. So once you get back, you can actually mix those into the soil or pull them out and compost them, but they've also added nutrients back into the soil to regenerate it and get it ready for another growing season. So if you want to learn more, which I'm sure you all do because it's fascinating stuff, you can attend our second free workshop, which is this Thursday in 2 days on the 21st from 3 to 4:30 p.m. again. It actually might be around this time, so 3 to 3:45 maybe. It might be a little early, but we give ourselves that much time just to be sure. And the second webinar is called Gardening Basics and School Garden Guide. And in this webinar, just to give you a teaser, we'll go in depth on some gardening skills that you should definitely know, and also into the School Garden Guide, which if you're new to school, you haven't yet received, but is a bunch of information and resources to help you guys out. And also make sure to put the following workshops on your calendar. The third webinar, Edible Plant Biology, which is Tuesday, August 26th, same time, and then the webinar number 4 about composting. That's all about composting, how to start your own compost bin, detailed information about vermiculture, about worm composting using worms, and those are both really fascinating. Those will be presented by Crystal, who works at Healthy Planet right now, and that is on Tuesday, August 28th. So with that, are there any more questions? There's a question from Michael. he asks, what compost sources do you use when you need to replenish your boxes? So it really depends on where you are, but generally we suggest connecting with your local waste resource or waste management facility. And if they have a composting system, they might also give out free compost that you can load up and put back into your beds. Another option is going to if you know someone who's digging up a site around their house, is going there and using some of the soil. We'd recommend testing it first just to make sure there aren't any harmful metals or anything in it prior. But plants really like that kind of hard clayey soil, at least in combination with other forms of compost. Another option is to obviously go to a nursery and you can get bags of compost there. And I would look into, there might be some sort of local composting groups that are around your area that can supply you with, maybe if they have a worm bin or something, they can supply you with some of the worm castings, or if they have a nice organic compost pile, they can give you some of that. So really trying to connect with your local community to find that, those lovely composting benefits. So I hope that answered your question. Awesome, great. So I guess we can turn back on the sound and stop sharing and unmute everyone so that you're allowed to speak your mind. So now that you guys are unmuted, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask me or the team?
So this is Michael again. Another question I have is, in our district, in San Jose Unified School District, they're pretty hard on using what's grown inside a school garden to be distributed or to be shared with students, and they do not like people selling food, but even beyond that, they really don't want to. They really don't want us to actually use the food for potlucks, as you were mentioning, or something like that. So, what are other school districts doing to try to get around some of these sort of liability issues that they are concerned about?
That's a really good question. At this point, so far, we haven't had a problem with people with school districts not allowing their students or their teachers to consume the food that's in the garden. Although we don't have a very well-defined garden to cafeteria program, that's definitely something that's going to be in the works in the future. But I would think, since the garden beds at your school are contained and have soil, have good organic soil, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know why they would say that. It's usually when it's on open ground, so you till directly into the ground, and they're not sure what kind of, like I said before, pollutants or trace metals or different things like that could be harmful are actually in the soil.
Right.
But I'll definitely look into that. That's definitely something to note, and
Yeah.
it does seem like a huge shame if you're
It's
growing all this food and not able to eat it and not able to share it, then what's the point, sort of.
exactly.
Yeah, you can't really go full circle with it. It's like, yes, the
Right.
kids are so excited they grow all these tomatoes, but I'm sorry, you can't eat them. You just have to look at them and see them rot and turn into compost.
And that's the thing we've been fighting with our district for several years now, to be able to actually use some of the things that we grow and put it into a salad bar, for example, in the cafeteria in a more formal sort of setting. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know why. I mean, I'm sure it has something to do with, if the kids who picked it or the teachers who picked it, did they wash their hands?
Right.
Can they ensure that these will be, not tainted with salmonella, for example, or E. coli or whatever it may be?
Yeah. No, I will definitely look more into that. And we know that there are more and more schools across the country that are doing garden to table, at their specific school. So
Yeah.
it's something that I think school districts need to get warmed up to, but it's
Sure.
also something that I think takes research and a lot of time generally when you're dealing with bureaucracy, just to be
True.
honest.
Yep, I agree.
Great. Thank you for your question.
Of course.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments before the session ends? Let's check out the chat box. All right, well, it looks like we're good. And of course, if you have any other questions, comments, concerns, feel free to email me or call. I will respond, hopefully in a timely manner. And I really appreciate you all attending the webinar, and I hope you will RSVP for our second, third, and fourth. There's lots of information coming your way, so thank you all so much. And have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Bye.